now we need to discuss the landforms in the middle course of the river. Now guys, when we talk about the middle course of the river, in the middle course, guys, the river shows both erosion as well as deposition. So we have both erosion as well as deposition in the middle course of the river. Now, when we talk about the middle course, guys, in the middle course, our most important landform that we have are known as floodplains. Now, when we talk about floodplains, guys, what actually happens in floodplains? Guys, consider this is the river valley. This is the U-shaped valley. Now, guys, this is the river that is flowing. Now, guys, the base of the river valley, as you people would be knowing, is known as the river bed. Now, when we talk about the sediments that are carried by the river, guys, the river carries two types of sediments. The smaller sediments that are floating on the river and the larger sediments that are present at the riverbed. Now, very simply, as you can understand, guys, when we are talking about these sediments that are floating are known as surface sediments, and those which are, you can say, deposited at the riverbed are known as bed sediments. So now when we talk about floodplains, guys, in floodplains we majorly have the role of surface sediments. अभी आगे लोअर कोर्स में एक लैंडफॉर्म आता है, आप लोग जानते होंगे डेल्टा. डेल्टा में गाइस जो रोल होता है वो बेड सेडिमेंट्स का होता है. So in floodplains it is the surface sediments and in the delta it is the bed sediments. Now guys, if say in this region heavy precipitation takes place, then guys, due to the precipitation, the water levels of the river increase. Now guys, these regions which are present adjacent to the river are known as river banks. Now when the water level increases, there might be a scenario where the river overflows from the river valley. That means that the amount of water in the river is more than the volume of the river valley. And as soon as the river overflows from the river valley, guys, the water starts, you can say, accumulating in regions adjacent to the river, and the river banks get submerged. So water level rise kar gaya hai. Water level is now the green one, and this water level or this volume of water is much greater than the volume of the river valley, and that is why now the river is overflowing. Now, as soon as the river overflows, guys, this scenario is known as flooding. So when we are talking about floods, guys, floods is actually nothing. It is simply overflow of the river. Now, when the overflow takes place, since at the surface there is the presence of surface sediments, these surface sediments also overflow with the river, and these surface sediments reach regions on the river banks. So river banks पे अब पानी भी है और river banks पे अब sediments भी हैं. We have both water plus sediments at the river bank. Now guys, finally what happens? After a certain period of time, the precipitation stops. When the precipitation stops, there is finally sunshine again. And when there is sunshine, guys, we see evaporation of water. When the water evaporates, guys, the river levels start receding. And when the river levels start receding, guys, then what happens is the water that is present on the river banks is removed. अब पानी तो evaporate हो जाएगा, but obviously the sediments won't get evaporated, and whatever sediments overflowed, those sediments are still deposited in these regions of the river bank. Now these sediments that are deposited across the river bank are known as fluvial sediments. And these areas of the river banks where we have the deposition of fluvial sediments are known as the regions of the floodplains. So technically, once the water evaporates after the overflow, guys, the sediments remain deposited in the regions adjacent to the river, and these areas where we have the deposition of fluvial sediments are known as floodplains.